Episode 12, I fucking think. Already cost. That was close. That was quick. Well, fuck it. Since I already started. I hope you guys are doing good. Who's ever listening to this? I hope you're doing good. Keep your chin up. And, cheer up. Hopefully you'll be able to listen to this wherever you're at. You're at work. If you're at work, who's ever beside you, just know fuck you. Whatever, I'm saying that for you. Whoever beside you, just look at him. I'm saying it to him. Fuck you, piece of shit. You can't hear us because you got headphones on, but fuck you. I hope you die. I hope your tits rot off and you fucking die. Co-worker. Co-worker that's beside who's ever listening to this. And you can, yeah, I'm sure they're cool. This episode is going to be about stand-up. Hopefully you can listen to this wherever you are, and this will fucking be a little interesting, a little fucking funny. So this is going to be me, Brian Rupp, talking about my journey as a comic. Or at least this episode is going to be a lot about just stand-up. How I got into it. Oh, fuck. Let's start at the beginning. I was born and grew up in Tennessee. And I always loved stand-up. Always loved it. You know, I was old enough that, stand-up wasn't this unheard of thing. When I was a kid in the 90s and 80s, the idea that you could be a professional comic was a very real thing. And when I'm talking here, I'm just going to talk about how the fuck it's been for me. Because every comic story is way different. At least mine's fucking different than most people's. Jesus shit. So, this is my journey with stand up. So, other guys got their stories. Here's my stories. But the 80s and 90s, I was born in 85. So, it was really the 90s. Early 2000s was my childhood. 2000, when the towers got hit, I was a sophomore, high school. Give you some perspective how old I am. So, you knew comedy as a kid. It wasn't this unheard of thing. Jerry Seinfeld had a show that was huge. Stand up was everywhere as a kid. Late night. That's back when late night television was still huge. Jay Leno. I think Johnny Carson was a real little kid. I really don't remember him, but definitely Letterman. And at the end of all those, they'd have stand up, and there were stand up comics. On MTV. Comedy Central would show. They had a big show back then called Premium Blend, and then they would show clips of the what is it, Montreal Comedy Festival. And I think the first tape I ever got, when I was a kid, used to be able to go to gas stations and they would sell. They have these little It's like if you go to a store and you buy sunglasses and they got that rotating rack. It was like that, but way smaller, and it hold cassette tapes. And I remember buying tapes off those when I was a kid. And the first comic I really got into, because I've thought about this a lot. Who was the first one? The first one I really got into was a southern dude named Rodney Carrington. And he is fucking hilarious. I still will go back and listen to him sometimes. He is great. I think that's the first guy. I think I had a cassette tape of his that I really started listening to. And then when I got a little older, they had Napster. And you could download music and shit. So then you could get all sorts of shit. And I remember listening to old Cheech and Chong and a lot of Doug Stanhope. When Jeff Foxworthy came out with the Blue Collar Comedy Tour, that was huge, especially in the South. It was big everywhere in America, but especially in the South. I mean, those guys were gods. Jeff Foxworthy was from Atlanta, which is an hour south of us. Ron White, legend. So comedy was huge, man. Kings of comedy. And in high school, I had Mitch Hedberg's CD all together now. And that thing was gold to me. I listened to that CD so many goddamn times. I love Mitch Hedberg. Dave Attell, you know, Louis C.K., all these guys. So I was always a huge comedy fan, and everyone loves stand up, right? Like, who the fuck doesn't like to laugh? You see someone being hilarious, and you're just like, oh, it's awesome. And I guess I was a bigger fan than most people. You know, I really liked it. So I never thought about being a comic, though, ever. I remember, so I left Tennessee. After high school, I didn't get a real diploma because I'm kind of a fucking idiot. So I couldn't go to like University of Tennessee. So I went to a community college for like 5 weeks and hated it. So after high school, I only hung out for about a year, 15 months, I think it was. And then I took off to Seattle. And I always wanted to be a musician. That's what I was really into as a kid. I still play instruments and shit. But when I was in high school and shit, that was the thing I wanted to do. Be a guitarist. You know, I really loved music back then. I might still love music, but, you know, back then, I was a huge fan of Primus, you know, Pantera and Slayer and Buckethead. And, you know, just all these great musicians. And, you know, Ween, one of the greatest ever. So I was trying to play music, but I never took any lessons. Well, I did eventually, but when I lived in Seattle, I did it. And I would try to jam. I still my problem with bands, but I played in a band in Seattle called Johnny Fucker Faster. And we were a punk band, obviously, you know, what was it, Christian pop band, but no, it's punk, obviously. And we never even played any gigs. We got a rehearsal place and practiced. We had like 14 original songs down. And then we never even played a single fucking gig. And I've done that a lot with bands. I've done that with, I just went through a band recently, did the exact same thing. We played like 2 gigs live. We practiced every week for like a year and a half. So I was doing the band thing, you know. And then I lived in Seattle for like 4 years. And that was the first time I saw stand up. I only seen stand up once before I did it. I got I didn't know what it was. All it was is I had a friend and his girlfriend said her girlfriend and like his she knew someone was gonna do some stand up. We should go see him. So we're like, okay. And we went to the show, and what it was a bringer show. I didn't know that at the time, but a bringer show is if they do this a lot in really big cities. Like if you're like doing this shit like New York or Seattle, a big ass place. A bringer show is okay. Me, Brian. Hey, Brian, you want to be on the show? Yes, I do. Okay, bring 3 people. You bring 3 people, then you can get some stage time, which is stage times. You can go on stage, do 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever the hell it is. You know, especially as early on. When you're early on, you're just gonna get sets or like 2 minutes, 5 minutes. You know, then you get up to 10 minutes. You're like, holy shit. So we went to a bringer show, and it was cool. They had a host up there. He went up there, and there was only probably like 10 or 12 of us in the crowd. Maybe not even that many. Maybe more. 20 at the most, 10 at the least. So the host comes up. They have, it's in like a coffee shop, something like that, or a bar. I just remember this room, and they had the chairs and tables set up, and they had a little stage, probably 6 inches off the ground. Host comes out. He introduces the comics, and they come out. And I remember like, I think it was a second or third comic. This guy, I was like crying. I was laughing so hard at this comic. No one else in the crowd was laughing as hard. They were laughing, but I was like almost like hyperventilating. I was laughing so hard at this guy's set. Even though it was years and years ago, I remember he was a skinny guy and he went up there and like he looked like a comic from like the 80s. He looked like something from the 80s. He just had like these baggy, he kind of looked like a clown, like these baggy clothes. Who's that? He looked kind of like Emo Phillips crossed with, oh God, I don't know, kind of like an Emo Phillips look, right? Just look him up. He's a comic. And he goes up there, and I'm not Emo Phillips. God damn it. Who gives a shit how this guy looks, though? All right? It's not the fucking point. He goes up there, and I remember he stood in front of the mic, and he had this really deadpan expression, and his voice was completely deadpan. And he's like, I brought some friends with me tonight. Could you guys please say hi? And like I said, there's like 12 of us. There's like these two girls on the side in this little side booth, and they wave or like hi, and he's like, yeah, if you could just do me a favor and come up here and stand on the stage, and they come up on the stage, and then he's just like, could you just do me a favor and look at me with complete disgust while I do my act? And then he just hit the floor, just boom, and he just hits the floor. And then the entire set he just did laying on the ground with his back facing the crowd. And it was so funny, man. I remember I died. I loved it, man. And, it's probably just like a 10-minute set he did. I remember he talked about, I think it was Cyndi Lauper. He was like, I love Cyndi Lauper so much. And I was listening to Cyndi Lauper's greatest hit CD. A CD so great, it doesn't even exist yet. And then he said, like, his walls, he was like, and the walls of my apartment, of course, are just wallpapered with blown up photos of Cyndi Lauper's breast, ass, and genitalia. And then there was a knock on my door. And guess who it was? Cyndi Lauper. And she looked at the photo in my apartment and said, wow, looks like my little man's been busy. It was something like that. And it was just the funniest shit, dude. I was dying. It was so funny. And then we were almost towards it when the last guy came on stage. It was actually the guy we were like kind of there to see. He was like, I guess, headlining it. And then we were watching him. He wasn't doing that good. And then my friends wanted to go. So then we left. So that was the first time I saw stand-up live. And I guess it made an impression on me because it really stuck with me that night. And I lived in Seattle, and I loved living in Seattle, but I say this all the time, like, because I lived out in Hawaii. People always ask me if like concerts I've seen in the mainland before I moved here. You don't catch any good shows out here in Hawaii. And it's just too expensive to. You can in Oahu some, but here on Big Island, you rarely see something. It's just way easier to catch shows on. So they'll ask me like, "Who'd you see?" And I'll be like, "Oh man, I remember when let's see, Sonic Youth came through." And they're like, "Did you get to see him?" I'm like, "No, I couldn't afford tickets." And I remember Bumper Shoot, could never afford tickets. I remember Capitol Hill Block Party every year, couldn't afford tickets. Sasquatch Festival, couldn't afford tickets. Just everything. Like every show that rolled through, dude, I can never afford tickets. I remember I was such a fan of Louis C.K. back then. And he was playing at the Moore Theater. And I wanted to see him so bad. Didn't have any money. I thought, well, maybe I can just go down and hear it through the back door. Maybe I can go to the alleyway and just listen to it. And I went down there. I couldn't get tickets, and I stood in the alleyway, and I put my ear against the door, and I couldn't hear shit. Like that's how big of a fan though of like Louis C.K. I was, you know. Took a bus all the way from Capitol Hill down there. So I really like stand up. I just didn't realize like how huge a fan though I was though compared to other people. I may have told that story before, but anyways. So I lived in Seattle a couple years, like 4 years, and shit didn't work out. And I was homeless. I lived on the streets for a while. I'll talk about that shit on another podcast. But when I was homeless, I was like, well, if I'm being homeless, might as well move to Hawaii. And I ended up in Hawaii. That's a whole nother story, really. So I lived in Hawaii. And then I lived out on a lava field, flow. You guys seen that video? I showed a little bit of that. And it was just this really weird. I was 27, and I'd been playing in another band with 3 other people, and it was fun. We did a bunch of different songs. It was mostly country, and we did some Hawaiian songs, you know. But then they never wanted to play live. I was like, let's go play at the downtown. And they're like, they never wanted to do it. They just want to sit at home and practice. We did this for like months and months and months. And finally, I was just like, I just want to go do something by myself. I remember thinking about that a lot. Something where I can just be completely in control and not have to deal with like other people. A band. Not have to deal with a band. And I was living out on the lava flow and just so fucking broke. So broke. I lived in this house and I moved into this place and I had a deal. I'm cool with the landlord, so I'm not going to tell the whole story, whatever. But he moves me into this place, or I look at it, and it had a wind turbine on top and a little solar panel. And he lived on the mainland. He was like, "Oh, you can rent this for like it was crazy cheap, like $200-300 a month, because it was just out in the middle of out in the lava flow. There was like 5 or 6 of us back then." So then he took, after I lived there for like 2 weeks, he comes over one day and it's like he grabs the windmill from the top that gave me power, and I was like, what's going on? He's like, "Oh, I'm just switching it." He put it on another rental he had, so he could rent that out. But he's like, "I'm ordering a better turbine, and it's gonna come here. I'm gonna put that one on here, and I'm giving this guy the shitty one." So I was like, "Okay." And there's nothing I could do because he's my landlord. But he never gave me another wind turbine. He just put it on his other rental and took off. So I had like no power at this place, like none, and I can't do shit out there. You would run out of water. It was all water catchment, and if it just didn't rain, you're just out of fucking water. That's it. You can't flush a toilet, can't brush your teeth. You'd have to hike a couple miles just to get a jug of water. There's a spigot, a water spigot down the road, and you have to go down there, fill up a jug, and carry it back. I didn't have a bike. I didn't have shit. I had a scooter for a while, but then it just broke down because it wasn't even like a real scooter. It was like a toy. And if I ever got a hold of some money, I would just buy like a big ass bag of dog food for Boo. And then I'd eat coconuts or lilikoi, whatever I could find out in the jungle. I think I had food stamps at the time. but you gotta sell that shit for money. You know, that's a big thing people, you gotta do to make money, And you're not supposed to do that, but, fuck, if you're trying to get home in life, get ahead, you're trying to, you know. So it wasn't good times. I was really, really, really I didn't even have the money to come back to the mainland if I wanted to. And I had a warrant in Tennessee, an arrest warrant. So, I'll tell that whole story about a joint I got caught with one time. And I don't know, I was like, what do I want to do in my life? Like, what am I going to do, man? I just can't, like, sitting out here, like, in the middle of nowhere. And I would walk, like, every morning, Bukowski, my pitch, he had, like, so much energy. Like, every morning we'd walk down to the ocean, these cliffs, man. There's no one. You don't see anyone all day. There used to be a little tiny beach out there. And then I'd walk back. I might see Dave or Ramon. Maybe we smoke, like, some resin out of a pipe. We were so broke. Tom would come by. We'd drink some moonshine. And, yeah, so I thought about stand-up. I was like, I've always wanted to do stand-up. It's something I've always wanted to do. I think, like, everyone, hasn't they wanted to do it? So I just decided. I was like, I'm going to do this shit. I'm going to do stand-up. And I didn't tell anyone. I maybe told one or two people. I think I told a kid I grew up with, Maddie, over the phone. Because it's 27. I already felt too old to start doing stand-up. I was like, God damn, I'm already 27. I think I'm too old to start doing stand-up. Which, really, 27 isn't that old. A lot of guys get in 30. Some guys, I've seen guys get 40, but usually people early 20s get into it. So I decided I'm going to do this, and I'm going to give it, like, I'm just going to be doing this for the rest of my life. Like, if I'm going to start doing this, I'm doing this, like, forever. And I didn't even really think, like, what if I suck at it? I was like, no, I'm just going to do this. And, all right, so cool. I decided to do stand-up. There you go. It's like, what do you do now? Probably some of you are going to be listening to this right now, and you're like, I want to do stand-up. What do you do? Well, you got to find an open mic. You got to find an open mic. If you're listening now, if you're trying to find an open mic, whatever area code you live in, here it's 808, Chattanooga's 423, just type in your area code on Facebook and put 808 comedy, 423 comedy. And that's probably, you'll get some stuff on Facebook that'll show up. Or just put in your town and put open mics. Some will pop up. That's how you do it now. Or you just ask on social media, but, didn't really have that shit back then. So, I'm trying to find an open mic. So, Doodles is looking, and she finds some hippie throwing a farmer's market open mic. So she tells me about that. So I start writing jokes, getting ready for that, and then that got canceled. So I was like, okay. And then, so I was writing jokes for like 6 months before I could find an open mic. 6 months. And then one day I was walking to the little Ace Hardware in our town, and there was a flyer that was like 6 by 4 inches right above the handle on the door to Ace Hardware, and it said open mic, Hilo Town Market. Hilo Town Tavern. I was like, oh. So super excited. I called the place, and this bartender answered the phone. I said, hi, you guys do an open mic? She was like, yeah. I was like, can I do stand-up? And she was like, sure, yeah. Yeah, I guess so. So I was like, fuck yeah. Her name was Blue. She's still a great bartender. I think she moved back to San Francisco. but that bartender's name was Blue. So I'm super excited. I didn't want to tell anyone. I didn't want anyone there. Doodles told some friends of mine, and they went there. My first open mic, I hated it because they were there, but they were cool. They didn't heckle me or say anything. They were just like clapping and nice. But yeah, your first time, don't bring anyone besides like your girlfriend or something. You don't want to go through this shit unless you're like trying to do the shit with you or something. Just go bomb in front of strangers. Go home, shake it off. And so I show up to the open mic, and I ask the guy. The guy's name is Tiger Stanley. That I was running it. And it was just, oh, so is this a place for the open mic? And he's like, yeah, here's a list. I signed up on a list. No one's. I got there early, so I'm the only one. No one's signed up yet. So I put my name in the first spot, and then he goes up there. He's like, "Hi, welcome to the open mic. Here's our guy, Brian Rupp." That was it. I was the only person that signed up on the list. I went up there, did 2 or 3 minutes. You know, just like I said, there's probably 4 or 5 people, and there was a bartender not paying attention, the host not paying attention, and then like probably 3 or 4, 2 or 3 people I knew, Doodles, and then like maybe 2 other 3 people. Said a couple jokes. Uh, I knew it didn't do good, but it felt great. I got off the stage, and I was shaking. I was shaking before I went up there. I used to throw up before I went on stage. I'd get so fucking nervous. God, I haven't thought about that in years. Yeah, I used to literally throw up sometimes. I'd get so fucking nervous. God damn, I haven't thought about that so long. I haven't done that in years. Wow. So, that was it, man. I did it. And just that first time you do it. I think I was listening to a lot of Opie and Anthony at the time. And I remember when I went home just feeling like I was one of them. I felt like I was a comic. And a lot of guys are like, "Oh, you're a fucking open micer." Man, fuck them. The first time you do stand up, you're part of the team. You are kind of part of the team. You're part of the open mic team for sure. And that is, it just felt amazing. That it was like, I've always wanted to do it. I didn't know. God, thinking how nervous I was to do that shit back then. My God, man. Like now I could just go up there and whatever. But, man, I felt good. It felt good. It felt so fucking good to just go after it. And Doodles was so supportive. Like, so supportive. So I did that first one. And, so after that, I just kept going. And I didn't know any other open mics. Like, if you're wherever you are, there's people out there like, I can't do it where I'm at. I live out in the middle of nowhere, and I guarantee you, where the fuck you are, you got more people than I do. I live on an island with 100,000 people that's in the middle of fucking nowhere. Like, towns here are so small. I mean, we don't even call them towns on the mainland. You guys would call them, rest areas. And if I found a way to get in this fucking business, there's no excuse for you, dude. None. Unless you're fucking in the middle of Wyoming or fucking Montana, but, there's still going to be some town with a bar, man. There's somewhere that's going to do open mic. If there isn't, start one. Just start one. And one thing I want to say, sorry, I feel jittery. I'm drinking a bang right now. But, these open mics, there's a big thing. Don't think you got to go to a comedy open mic. Just go to a fucking music one. Just go up there, and if you feel like they're not going to let you do it, don't tell them you're a comic. Wait till they announce your name. And then when you're on stage, like, "Oh, what do you do?" Like, "Oh, I do stand-up." Like, "Oh, you do stand-up?" They'll let you do it, dude. Everyone's been cool as fuck to me that's let me do this all over. All right? So just go to whatever open mic. You don't got to go to a comedy one. And to be honest, non-comedy open mics are better. And here's all my philosophies. Guys are gonna be, woo. Okay, here's the thing with a comedy open mic. You're gonna go to a comedy open mic somewhere on the mainland, and there's gonna be like 12 guys in there. 6 guys, 3 guys, right? And you're gonna be like, oh, this is the crowd. It's not the crowd. They're all comedians waiting to do their shit. They're gonna go up there, do their 5 minutes, bomb. You're gonna do your 5 minutes, bomb. And it's hard because as a new comic, you're not really focusing on laughing. Sorry. Laughing and entertaining yourself and be like, I'm here to enjoy myself and laugh at everyone's jokes. You're there because you're focusing on yourself and trying to be funny. So you're like, when another comic's on stage, when you're early on, you're not even really thinking. You're trying not to throw up because you're so nervous. And that's how they feel too. So they're extremely nervous. You're extremely nervous. Everyone in there's extremely nervous. And then what happens is you go to that same open mic every week. You're trying to work on this 5 minutes, 2 minutes. You got a couple little jokes you're working on. And you're going to write some shit every week, but you can't write a whole new minute every week, or you shouldn't, because you need to be honing this hour or 15 minutes you're putting together. But eventually you're going to know each other's sets, and then you're really not going to be laughing at each other's shit. So then you're just listening to each other's sets you've heard a million times. And it's just like almost stupid. But if you go to a music open mic or a mixed open mic, you're going there with a bunch of musicians and they're not all laughed out. There's going to be audience members there and you might be the only comic there. And you can actually like get an audience to work on your material instead of 4 or 5 open micers. Right? So, anyways. So I start doing open mics. And I just attack it like a fucking animal. I go at it. Like, I treat it like I'm in New York City. And I got 3 kids at home. And if I don't get a fucking gig, they're not going to get fed. I just start going to every open mic I can find. I was hitting 3 a week. There was... I was driving wherever the fuck, doing it wherever the fuck, and trying to hit at least like 3 a week, and writing new jokes, getting a little better. But I did stand up, I think, for a solid year before I met another person that did stand up. And it was just another open micer. A guy that just started. It was actually Tony Ridenauer, who's an astrophysicist up on he's a telescope operator up on the mountain here. But he was just a guy that wanted to do stand-up too. So it wasn't like, oh, hey, there's this guy I can like learn a bunch from. So I was, working hard on it. And once I met Tony, it was kind of neat because then I had someone else to do stand-up with. And we would start going to open mics together. And that was amazing to have like a buddy. And then just more people started doing it. It was Kevin Hobbs, Tom Campbell. Oh, God, there's been a Kanohi Bet started, Nehemiah Neapoli, Larry the Stolen Cable Guy. These are all guys that have just been doing it over in Hilo over the years. And then there's a bunch of people. The scene grew and grew. I'm trying not to get too ahead of myself and keep in order. So I'm like 2 or 3 years in. So I was just doing open mics a lot. And I didn't know how much stuff happens in Hawaii, but Hawaii has this whole culture. They have their own music from the 70s and 80s. They have their own television shows from the 70s and 80s. They have their own inside jokes and shit. And I didn't realize all this shit until I moved here. There's like huge culture. There's like black people music. There's Hawaiian music. There's Hawaiian food. There's Hawaiian everything. This culture. And there used to be huge stand-up comedians out here. Like the biggest comedians out here was Rap Rillinger. And they were part of a comedy group called Booga Booga. And it was Rap, Frank DeLima, Mel Kabang, Andy Bumatai, and these guys were gods. They would sell out shows out here in Oahu. I've heard stories from Lanai, the great comic out here, at Melka Bang used to do shows in Oahu like every night, 2 hour shows. It was supposed to be like a 40-minute show, and he would do like 2.5, 3 hour shows every night. People would be lined up around the block. This is like 2, 3, 400 seat theaters. He did this shit like 5 nights a week. That's how huge the local stand-up was out here. It was massive. Huge. These guys used to be on television. They put them on their public access because they couldn't even get television from the mainland back then. So they had their own local television shows and shit. And these guys are legendary. Like, you go around to old Hawaiians, you're like, oh, the cockroach. They'll lose their shit because that's from an old Rap Rillinger bit. And, he used to just all this stuff. You can look up all these guys, but they're legends out here. And then Rap overdosed like in the 80s and died. The other guys, he's got this whole story just like, a rock star out here. So I guess I said all that to say this. So the comedy used to be huge in Hawaii. And then there was this massive drop in it. Massive drop. I didn't know about all this till I got years into stand-up. But, so when I got into stand-up out here in the state of Hawaii, 12 years ago, it was in a massive, no one was doing stand-up. The only people that did stand-up on this whole island was me and Nehemiah Nihipali. Nehemiah Nihipali was the only guy I know that's been doing it out here before me. He's still doing it today. And like Oahu had nothing. They had the old guys from Booga Booga, but they're now in like maybe their 60s, 70s. So they were getting really, they were getting old. And so there was like this lull of no new comedians. So when I was 2 or 3 years in, Oahu started doing stand-up. And Oahu, Honolulu, that's where the island Honolulu is. 90% of the state population lives in Honolulu. That's, where everyone lives here. That's our LA out here. And there's over 1 million people there. It's a major, major fucking city. And there wasn't anyone doing stand-up. Or a new generation doing stand-up. So, I guess probably right when I started out here on Big Island, people in Oahu started this new generation. And it started with Jose Dynamite, Pepper Lamb, Jonathan Sprinkles, and David Lucas Price, R.I.P. He passed away. But these guys, and Patrick Tyrell, they started doing shows in Oahu. So when I was 2 or 3 years in, I started looking up like Hawaiian comedians. And one of the only guys that was big at that time was a guy named Augie T. He's big still. He's huge. And he would bring this comic with him on the road, Jose Dynamite. So I started seeing clips on YouTube. And the only thing, that was going around was kind of like Augie T. That was kind of the only guy I can remember like coming through the island like doing shows. Because he was like right below the Booga Booga guys. He started out, he was just like a little younger than them. So he was coming out, he'd come out once in a while. So I saw these clips of Jose Dynamite. So I was doing shows about 2 or 3 years now. There was a guy that came here from the mainland that started coming to the open mic, doing stand-up. And he knew Jose Dynamite. And Jose Dynamite wanted to do shows on this island. So he talked to this guy. So Jose Dynamite came out to the open mic. So I knew who he was. And I was so nervous, I didn't even want to talk. I couldn't talk to the guy. And this comic, his name was Aaron, was like trying to get me to sit with him. I think I did finally. I went and sat with him. And I didn't know how big this was going to be. But Jose Dynamite really. This is how I met Jose Dynamite. Jose Dynamite really, really helped me become a better comedian in everything. I didn't know it at the time how big a thing this was going to end up being, but so we met Jose, Aaron, we're talking, and Jose says he's going to come do a show. And he was going to bring Paulo Gata. Paulo Gata, fucking hilarious. One of my favorite comedians in the world. Check him out, Paulo Gata. He was a guy that started in Honolulu and then moved to the LA years and years ago, but he's still a Hawaiian guy, so he comes through. So he's going to book a show with him. And I asked him, so I did stand up that night. I think Tony did. And Jose asked Tony if he wants to be on the show. Tony's only been doing stand up now, maybe like 6-8 months. I've been doing like 2 years. And that crushed me that I couldn't be on the show. Like, just devastated me. And it was so bad. And then I came home one night. It's after I couldn't get on the show. And I don't know how to tell this story. Shit. I'm getting really sidetracked here. I might as well tell this story. So I didn't get on the show and I was crushed. And then but I had tickets bought for the show. So I went. And I remember Doodles was like, "Babe, bring your joke book. Like maybe he'll ask you to go on stage." And I was like, "No, he's not gonna." And she talked me into it, so I brought my joke book. And then I got there, and I asked Jose if I could be on the show. And you should not do this, by the way. This is not what you should do for a promoter. Ask, especially if they see you do your stand up. But this is my story. So I go up to him. I was like, "Can I please be on the show, please?" And he was like, "Oh no, I'm sorry, man. We already got like people on it." And I said, "Dude, you have 50% of the island's comics on stage." He was like, 50%? He's like, "You mean out of all the comics on the island right now, it's just you and this guy?" And I was like, "Yeah." And so then he was like, "All right, let me hear a joke." And I told him a joke. And we still laugh about this to this day. I remember I told him the joke. And he was like, "Is that it?" I remember I looked right at him. I was like, "It crushes on stage." So I went on stage and I had a great set. I had a great fucking set. I did a couple one-liners that did good. And then I had this great bit. And the bit was, it was back when there was this dentist that went and shot and killed a lion or something in Africa. And everyone got all upset. They're like, "This rich motherfucker's just trophy hunting and shit." And so I had this bit where, I think it was my first good bit. I had this bit, because that was a real topical thing at the moment. And I come up with this bit where I said, "Oh, I got this idea to help kids in Africa." And I'm going to butcher this shit, but this was the gist of it. "Oh, I got this plan to help all these kids in Africa. There's all these starving kids in Africa." I was like, "I'm starting a fundraiser, and I'm saving up for all these little tiger lion costumes. I'm going to buy thousands of these little lion costumes." Sorry, that's how I started the joke. I said, "I'm going to start a fundraiser where I'm going to get all these little lion costumes. And then I'm going to give all those lion costumes to little kids in Africa. I'm going to, here, put these on. If white people think you're a lion, people will give a shit about you and make sure you get food and water and make sure people don't shoot you and shit." And it did really good. I got a big laugh from the crowd. And, like I said, it was a topical subject at the time. And so then Jose was like, "That was great, man." And then I remember we got to go out. We went, and then after the show, he was hanging out with Paul, and they're like signing photos and taking photos. I got to take a photo with them and Paul. And then they were going to a restaurant, a bar next door, to keep hanging out. And I just stood there with Doodles and Jose Dynamite, Paulo Gata. They were walking away, and they just turned around and looked at me like, "You're coming with, yeah?" And I remember just being like, "Oh, yes. And I looked at Doodles. We're like, yeah, we're coming. And just to be invited, to hang out with the comics, it was just such a fucking great feeling. It was just so great. It was a sushi place. We ate sushi and drank. And then the owner of the bar we performed at came in. He owned the sushi place too, and he fucking just said the tab was on him. Probably ordered a lot more booze if I'd known that at the beginning, but that was amazing. Shout out Issa. And like once that happened, then it was really on, because then it was like, wow, like I'm actually like getting this done. So I met Jose. I wanted to, hit the road and stuff. So I was like, hey, can I come out to Oahu? I just want to do an open mic or something. And he was like, yeah, I run open mic. Come out. So I started buying tickets out there to Oahu and started going to open mics out there. And I would go out there like once a month. In the Oahu scene back then, there was only like, man, 10 or 12 comics. It was real small, this scene. On the whole island here, there's 2 or 3 of us, and over there, there's 10 or 12 of them. And I go to the open mics, and that's where I met Andrew Joyce, Nick Mikowski. A lot of these guys have quit comedy. Chad Wagle, Jeremy Costello, Anthony Nigarelli. That was his real last name. It sounds like that's just a racist term, but it's not. It's his real last name. Jasmine, Brandy Morgan, all these people. And so it was really fun getting to go out there, because then I was like really hanging out with comics. We'd go out, I could hit a couple hit maybe 2 mics in one night. And you're in the city and you're running around in Ubers and you're getting shit faced. And it was super, super fun. And, you got a little crew and you're going together. You just bomb. You're like, hey, fuck it. Fuck the crowd, whatever. And, you kind of need that shitty attitude. Just to go to the station. O'Brien's, O'Toole's. All these spots I've performed over there. And so it just started growing. And then I started hosting shows. And that's when you really start getting good. If you ever really, really want to get good fast, start hosting. Because hosting is like doing 12 sets a night. Just start open mic. Like, this is going to jump around a bunch, but, if you want to make, I've made all right money. I've met some amazing comics and shit. Like, so I started hosting. So Jose and me, we've always had this dream of doing like an island tour, just to do a tour. We actually talked about this recently. We're probably actually going to do this shit now. But Oahu, Big Island, Maui, Molokai, Kauai. Hit it all on a nice tour. Because they used to do that. There used to be a nice 2-week string that comics used to come out here and do all the time. 2-week run of shows. And now we can't, because now over in Maui, there's guys running shows over there now. Chino LaForge, he's a hilarious comic over there that's running. And the scene now has grown. Now I don't even know how many fucking comics are now here on Big Island. And then all these guys in Kona started doing it. Jesse Muma, Yasir, Katie Lynn, bunch of Common Gun. It's just so many. Mike Fellows be coming out, and so it just kept growing. And then Jose started doing shows out here, and that's when he taught me how to run shows and how to be a promoter. And that was a huge, huge part of this business. When I was just a comic, I was like, oh, I'm funny, pay me. And then once I was a promoter, it showed me the business side of being a comic, which is getting spots, getting venues, trying to get paid. You know, what are you worth? Really, when it comes down to comedy, you can be funny as shit, but if you're not bringing people to come see you, you're never going to make a shit ton of money. But the day you can say, hey, I'm here, and 200 people show up, that's when you're going to make fucking money. That's what I'm trying to get to. And I don't want 200 to show up. If I can get 20, if I can say I'm doing a show in Houston and 20 of y'all show up, I'll be tickled pink. And I'll bring a joint, we'll smoke, we'll talk story afterwards. I had to say that too. You ever want to write a comment, even if you just say, hey, you bald faggot, fuck you. I'll be like, thanks, dude. Thanks, man. I love you too, man. I know what you mean by that. I know exactly what you mean. But anyways, so the promoting, that's a big part of this shit. You call bars, you're like, hey, you want to do a comedy show? And a lot of them be like, fuck no. And you're like, all right, cool. But a lot of do. They do want to do a comedy show. And I've made some good money. I've made most of my money being a comic from running open mics. And I know that sounds crazy, but I'm just going to give you my method here. This is the Brian Rupp way to make money in stand-up. All right? You go to a bar and you go, this is the deal. This is a spiel. This is the script I give them. I want to run open mic on a Monday, Tuesday. You make money, because most bars, they make all their money on a Friday, Saturdays. Those are big nights. So if you can make a bar money on a Monday, their ears are going to perk up. All right? So you're like, how would you like to make money on a Monday? Or you just ask them, what's your slowest fucking night? And they're usually going to say Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday. So how would you like to make money on those? Now, here's the deal. I can run open mic. I would take care of all the promotion. I'll hang the flyers. I'll take care of all the social media. And I'll host it. Here's the deal. Here's what they like to hear. You go, all I want is 10% of liquor sales. That's how I get paid. But I do not get paid till you hit 500 in liquor sales. All right? So here's the deal. If they don't make 500 in liquor, you don't get paid. They hit 490, tough shit, you go home with nothing. Once you hit 500, you're getting 10%. And they'll like that. Because on a Monday, they're not making any fucking money. They just got the lights on. They're probably losing money. Most bars don't make money. But you got to keep the lights on this shit, So they like that deal. Because, dude, if you don't make any money, they don't got to fucking pay you. So it's a win-win for them. So that's what you want to do. All right? When I was running a good one, I was making some nights $150, $200 a night. Cash. I was running 2 at one time. So I was making like $250 a week. Just running 2 open mics. I don't even have to travel. That's pretty fucking good. For being some asshole in the middle of nowhere. And that's how you do it. And then you're going to go to Office Max. You're going to pull out your phone. You're going to make a little shitty flyer. Your flyer, make it easy to read. And all it's got to say is who, what, when, where. What? Open mic. When? Fucking shithole bar. When? 7 to pow. Closing. Fucking who, what, when, where. All right, yeah. Say all that. Make it simple to read. Don't put a bunch of bullshit on there like, brought to you by fucking Bonehead Productions and a DJ something something. Just make it say something. Put a cutesy photo. Look at my shit online. You can see how I made them. And then you download your little shitty app on your phone. Make your little flyer. Go to Office Max. Get that shit printed. Way fucking cheaper. Way fucking cheaper trying to print at your house. I like to go black and white too because black ink's expensive. So get your fucking money's worth. So get your little flyers. You're going to tape some up around town. You'll find the spots you can hang them, right? Hang them up at tattoo parlors. Garage shops, always cool with it. Hippie stores, head shops. Anything corporate won't let you hang them. A Safeway, Longs, they ain't going to let you hang that shit. So it's got to be like a privately owned business. Car shops, bookstores. Shit like that. Those little boards. And then go to other open mics. Find open mics in your area. Go to them. Get cool with everyone. Tell them about your open mic. And they'll start showing up. The first 6 months of your open mic is going to suck balls. It is going to suck. You're going to be there by yourself for 6 hours, and you're going to feel like a fucking asshole. You're going to be sitting there looking at an empty stage. You're going to feel like a piece of shit. All right? But you got to get through it. You got to do it. You got to sit there from 7 till close. You know, you might need to play a little music. You might have to go up there every 10 minutes, not every 10 minutes, play a little music, go up there, announce to everyone that you got a list up there they can sign up on. But people will start showing up. If some lady walks up and goes, "Can I karaoke one?" Sure, you can karaoke 40. Just anything to let them get up there. Some guy wants to juggle. Go nuts. You know, especially in those early days, man. But they will show up. You just got to be consistent. All right? That's my, thing to open mic guide. So the scene was growing and growing. And, sorry, I was talking about, once we started promoting Jose, bringing out comics, then you can start bringing out your own comics. And that's a lot of fun. Once you get these venues, they'll let you run a comedy show. And I ran a lot of shows. And then I did it with Jose for years. And we'd be doing shows like, man, 1 or 2 a week. I mean, 1 or 2 a month. Maybe 1 a month. Probably usually that. Sometimes 2. Bringing out names. But then once you get a production thing going, you start running shows, you're going to have comics call you. Ugh. Now you're the promoter and shit. Now you got to choose comics to bring out. You're going to have a lot of assholes come up to you and say, "I'm a comic in New York or LA. That means I'm hilarious." That doesn't mean... I'll be honest, I've seen more shit comics from New York, LA than anywhere else. I know there's amazing... we all know there's amazing comics in New York, LA, but there is more garbage comics from those areas. I'd rather take a comic from St. Louis, Cincinnati. I've seen amazing comics from Cincinnati. Holy God. I've seen... some of the best I've seen are comics out of Cincinnati. Houston, Denver, Seattle. These places got amazing comics. But then there's just these guys that are just like me that just started wherever, whatever. But those are, and they don't bring out the big guys. You got to pay big bucks, Usually it's like $5,000, to bring out a really, really big name. Like someone we've seen on Netflix. It's probably going to be like $5,000. But I've got to work with some amazing guys. The biggest comic out here in Hawaii is a guy named Tumua. And I remember when he opened up for me over in Oahu. He's hilarious, really good guy. He's huge right now. He sold out the Palace Theater here, I think 4 or 5 nights in a row. It's insane. I think he sold out 4 nights in Kona, literally just last week. And I remember when he opened up for me, like 4 or 5 years ago. I remember I opened up, he didn't open up for me. I was just doing a show and he was on it and he went on before me. But he was really new. He was like 2 years in. Maybe not even that. I remember he had a rough set because there's all these white people from the mainland and they couldn't understand him. And I think I told him, I know I definitely talked to Jose about it that night. I even might have told him, I said, "Dude, you're really funny, but you just got to, get in front of local crowds and you'll kill it." And then he started doing social media stuff and he found all the locals that had moved to the mainland, all the locals here, and they all started, now they love him. He's blowing up. But it was just amazing to see a guy like that you just knew was funny and see him blow up. It was great. It's awesome. And then, there's guys I've seen, there's been on Joe Rogan and shit. They've stayed at my house and shit. I bring these guys out. They crash on my floor, or crash on my couch, crash on my bed. Eventually, when I got another, bed they could sleep on and shit. Like, I know a lot of these guys won't even remember me because they're so big now. And that's cool. Because we only met, like Sam Talent. That was one of the first guys that we brought out. That was like just blown away. Him, Paul Ogata, him, Steve Cantwell, who's a guy from Honolulu, one of my favorite storytellers. He moved to Houston, but he's great. But those guys, seeing those guys early on was mind blowing. I really remember Paul Ogata and Sam seeing them the first times. It was like, wow. I saw Sam Talent just shoot down hecklers one time for like 40 fucking minutes. It was, I think, the most amazing thing I ever saw in my life. He was shooting down hecklers, but not pissing everyone off. Making everyone laugh their fucking ass off. And he wasn't trying to be heckled. They just started doing it. It was just a drunk. I've performed all over America. The crowds out here can be pretty fucking nuts. As far as being shit-faced and rowdy. And it was just insane. He handled it for like 40 minutes, dude. It was mind-blowing. And seeing the way Paul Ogata can work a room with crowd work is just insane. I've seen Paul Ogata destroy a room with like 15 people. You know, it's insane. And, you know, Sam crashed here. We drank beer, smoked. He, you know, slept on my couch. Had breakfast, you know. I almost got him arrested one time. Well, we almost got arrested. We were doing a USO show, and I was driving. I had weed. You know. And then to see him blow up after he wrote his book. We had his first edition. I remember when he wrote his book, we're like, wow. You guys probably haven't seen the first cover. The first cover looks way different. It's like him. It's like this blurry photo of him running the light. And Ace, a couple of my friends bought a copy. And Ace doesn't even read, so he just gave it to me. And I was broke, so I couldn't afford it at the time. And I read it. I remember thinking, I was like, wow, this is a really good book. And I started sharing it with other people, and he just blew up. That's when he just blew the fuck up. And, you know, Ian Edwards, who's been on, you know, Joe Rogan, you know, he's been out here, and just huge guys, man. And then, you know, Uncle Laser, I was just hanging out with him, I don't know, 3 weeks ago. You know, I hate to name drop, but it's just like, I kind of, you know what I'm saying? I kind of got it, so you know I'm not just like some crazy guy. I got to open up for Felipe Esparza. Open up for Josh Blue. Josh Blue, his specials are good, but he is so much funnier in person. Like, if you ever get the chance to see Josh Blue, he's one of my favorites. He is so funny. Like, his specials are great, but it's just like, oh my God, is he so much funnier in real life? I hate saying that because his specials are great, but just like, I couldn't believe how funny he was in person. Like, one of the coolest motherfuckers I've ever met in my life is Josh Blue. Do a show with him. You know, when you get to do a show in front of 500 people, dude, it's just, you do years and years, and I've had a lot of crazy shows. You know, I remember doing a show at the tavern one time, and there was this new comic, and she went up there and she did her set, and she came off the stage, and she's like, hey, what'd you think of my set? I was like, well, I was trying to pay attention to it, but it was hard because this guy was getting stabbed right over here. So I caught most of it, but then, you know, the stabbing started happening. That was like a crazy set, I remember one time. I had this crazy bitch try to stab me one time at a show. This crazy bitch, we had this comic. He was doing impersonations, and I was hosting, I was wrapping up. I was like, oh, I got an impersonation. Mine's of a Koki frog. Or no, I said, oh, I got an impersonation. And I went like this. Yeah, it was just a Koki frog. The crowd was like, oh, Koki frog. I was like, oh, that's it. All right, thanks, y'all. Some crazy bitch outside heard me saying that and said I was talking through the Koki frogs. She came in with a knife. She was walking up to me, and one of the servers walked up to her. It was in COVID. I was like, oh, you got to put a mask on. And she was like, oh, I don't need a mask. I'm just going to be a second. She's like, you got to put a mask on. She's like, no, I just got something to do. And she pulled out the knife. And I guess she was trying to stab her or me. She got tackled by everyone. We held her down. They got the knife from her. I was just a crazy bitch. You know, I mean, I've had guys jump on stage, try to fight me. I've had multiple guys jump the stage, try to fight me at once. You should carry a knife on you if you go on stage. 2 knives, one in each pocket. I know it's crazy to say, but times are crazy, man. Just carry a knife on you. And if anyone ever jumps a stage, my tip: get off the stage and get towards homies, anyone you know. That way, at least it's a fair fight if it's gonna be a group thing. But don't stay on the stage. Definitely get off the stage and get towards people. Got your back. That's my tip. And God, stand up. It's just been so much fun doing shows, and I'm still doing them. I did an open mic the other night. It sucked shit. Bombed. In front of 4. I don't know if it counts bombing in front of 3 people at open mic, but ugh. But always writing jokes. Make a journal. Don't do it in your fucking bullshit phone. Fuck your phone. Write your jokes down in a paper journal and just start collecting them. Write your sets down. Then go over what did good. I remember a good tip is record yourself and watch it. I remember, because it sucks because you don't want to watch yourself. It's just so cringe. But I finally did about 2 years in. I recorded myself and watched it, and it was so mind-blowing how different I looked on stage than what I thought. I watched the recording myself, and all I heard was cuss words. That's all I heard. It was just like, yeah, fucking shit. It's fucking what the. That's all I could hear. I couldn't even hear any other words. It was just me yelling cuss words on a microphone, just like a crazy person. And I was like, Jesus Christ, that's what I look like on stage? And I wonder why no one fucking talks to me. So, that's gonna be your comedy journey, man. And then eventually, if you don't quit, like 95% of people do, you don't get a good job ever. You just keep going, man. And if you don't enjoy it, don't do it. But if you do, do it. And it's been so fun, man. Going on the road, driving across the country. Yeah, I've done 2 mega road trips across the country. And, they're so fun. Just hanging out with comics. And then when you start getting bigger and better, and when those shows start getting sweet, when you start, like, one of the big fancy shows I get to do out here is a place called Blue Note. And you can look it up. And it's fancy as shit, man. You pull up, and you got to sign a contract, and you get bonuses if it's sold out. So it's like a third filled, you get paid this much. If it's half filled, you get this much. If it's sold out, you get like a bonus. And then you go into the back of that place. They got valet parking, giant green room, huge conference table surrounded with chairs. It's got 2 full bathrooms with showers, another little rooms. And when you get to perform like that, you feel like such a God. You feel so great. The last time I performed there, you get a free meal. I get like a steak. They got a menu back there, and I get to order a fucking meal, paid for. And then she says, would you like a drink, Mr. Rob? I was like, oh sure. Can I get a beer? They don't got any of the shitty beer I like. I have to get like something better than Rolling Rock or Pabst. I'm like, can I get a Heineken? She's like, sure. She came back with a 6-pack of Heineken, opened one, handed it to me. And she's like, I'll just put the rest of these in the fridge for you. Got a little fridge back there. I was like, oh yeah. Oh fuck yes. That's when you start feeling good, man. Doing shows, seeing guys that you worked with that are just blowing up on TV. And it's just cool, man. And of course, sometimes you feel a little jealous. Oh, I wish I made me and blah blah. But you know, you got to work on that. You got to realize that's all you, man. But oh god, I want to trade it for the world. All this shit. I remember the USO show. Uh, Tom Campbell. There's a guy. He came into my open mic, and he's a great guy I'm friends with. But he was a command sergeant major of the military base up here, which is like the boss. So he decided we're gonna do USO shows. So we went up there to do a USO show, and I had some weed in the car. Me and Sam were smoking. Sam Talent. I started the story earlier, but just real fast what it was. And we went up there, and we were just smoking the fuck out of my van, dude. And we pulled up, and Jose Dynamite was in front of me in another car. And then we pull up, me and Sam, and they're like, "Yeah, pull over right here." Man, they make us get out of the car. They're pissed, dude. These guys, you know, they got the M16s. And they're like, "What the fuck you doing? Blah, blah, you drugs." And I'm like, "What the fuck? Because weed isn't shit out here. They don't give a fuck about weed." And I'm like, "Dude," and they're like, they're trying to say I was up there to deal drugs. And I was like, "Dude, I'm not, what the hell?" I was like, I'm a comic. I'm up here to do a USO show. They're like, "What are you doing?" I don't think I admitted I had weed. I was just like, "I don't know what you guys are talking about." They're like, "You fucking Riga weed. What are you doing it? Bring it in here, blah, blah." They're talking about they're going to arrest us. And I was like, "Dude, I was just leave." And they're like, "You can't leave. Like, this is federal." I was like, I thought weed was legal. And like, "This isn't fucking, this is a federal base, a base. It's not fucking out Hawaii." I'm like, "Dude, I'm not in the military. Like, I don't know any of this stuff." Like, I was literally just gonna, like, because the gate, there wasn't a gate. I was just like, I'm just gonna hop this way. Like, fuck you. Like, but it was bad. And then, on the walkie-talkie, man, I heard Tom Campbell start screaming at him. He was like, he's like, are you fucking serious? Are you fucking trying to harass and arrest the fucking comics that are up here to entertain these troops for free?" And, man, their whole attitude fucking changed. They're like, "No, sir, we weren't." And they're like, "You're going to escort them up to the fucking..." So they're like, "Oh, okay, yes, sir, yes, sir." So they're like, "Okay, if you have anything in the van, just go drop it off outside the base." And we're like, "Oh, we don't, but I'll go drop something off." Oh, anyway, so we just went. There was this little park down the road, so we just left my van there. They had weed in it. I just came back in the other car with Jose, and then the whole fucking changed. The whole fucking attitude changed then, and that was great. And then the whole base was talking about it everywhere we went. Like, "We heard about you at the gate." We're like, "Fuck, man, a bunch of chatty Cathys." And then we went on stage, and it was funny because then while Sam was talking about it, he saw the woman that stopped us at the front. He was like, "Yeah, it was this bitch right here. What the hell's your problem?" And I got a big laugh from everyone. And, yeah, that was just fun times, man. Um, I think Tom posted that clip up on the internet. That's me pretty early on. I never would have posted something of me that early on, but now I'm kind of glad it's up there. So you can actually see I've been doing this shit for a while. And then you can watch me now and be like, "Oh, wow, he's actually got a little better here." So it's just about everything I want to say about getting into stand up and how to do it. You know, if you are listening to this and you want to get into stand up, I hope that helped. And I hope you found it a little interesting about how I got started in this shit. And I'll be around, man. You guys listen to this. I'll be putting out shit, some form, you know, the day I die. So, hope you guys enjoyed that shit, man. So, have fun. Party on, Wayne.